This is the hydraulic press, a monster of a machine that bends steel like paper, flattens objects like dough, and crushes with unstoppable force. But behind all that raw destruction lies something extraordinary, a hidden science that transforms liquid into pure power. What makes this monster so strong? How does fluid create thousands of pounds of pressure from a simple push? Today, we're diving deep into the mechanics, the physics, and the sheer brilliance of hydraulic engineering. And trust me, once you see how it works, you'll never look at this machine the same way again. Let's dive right in. A hydraulic press uses fluid pressure to generate immense force. Force strong enough to bend steel, shape metal, and flatten almost anything in its path. It's the same hidden force that lets an excavator dig deep into the earth and lift tens of thousands of pounds with ease. The secret is a simple but brilliant 400-year-old principle called Pascal's law. It states that pressure applied to a confined fluid is transmitted equally in all directions. In other words, a small push can unleash a massive force. Picture this. You press down on a small piston with just a little force. That pressure travels through the fluid and pushes up on a much larger piston. Because the larger piston has more surface area, the force multiplies, turning your tiny push into thousands of pounds of power on a larger one. That's the beauty of hydraulics. Small input force becomes magnified into massive output force. Now that we understand the principle behind it, let's break down the hydraulic press piece by piece. The hydraulic press consists of two main units that allow it to unleash its powerful force. 1. The hydraulic power unit, which pumps the hydraulic oil. 2. The actuator unit, which is the hydraulic cylinder which performs the pressing work. Both the hydraulic power unit and the actuator are mounted on a rigid machine frame made of high-strength steel. The hydraulic power unit is the heart of the whole system. It generates the required hydraulic energy needed for the press. This unit creates the necessary oil flow at the required pressure to the hydraulic cylinder. It also consists of several components which we will look into right away. This is the oil reservoir that contains the hydraulic oil. This is the filling filter. It is the inlet through which the reservoir is filled. This is the hydraulic pump, which is driven by an electric motor. In this case, the pump is a gear pump, which is a fixed displacement pump, meaning it delivers the same amount of oil continuously. The fluid flows through the suction pipeline into the cavity where the gears disengage and gets trapped in between the teeth and the casing of the gear. When the teeth re-engage, they displace the fluid to the pressure pipeline, which directs the fluid into the outlet port. This is the outlet port, which is equipped with a pressure relief valve. The pressure relief valve acts as a safety mechanism that protects the system from overpressurization. Inside the valve, a heavy-duty spring presses against the poppet tightly, acting as a seal. When the pressure in the system gets too high, the fluid forces the poppet to push back against the spring. This compression opens a new path for the oil to escape, cycling it straight back into the reservoir until the pressure stabilizes. This is the pressure gauge. It shows the system's pressure in real time. This is the return filter, which filters out the impurities in the oil returning into the tank. As soon as the motor is turned on, the pump sucks the oil and delivers it to the outlet port. Then pressure builds up. The oil supply line supplies hydraulic oil to the directional control valve. The directional control valve is the control device that regulates the flow of hydraulic oil into the hydraulic cylinder, which does the pressing work. The hydraulic cylinder is the actuator of the press that actually converts fluid pressure into force and delivers the crushing force to the workpiece. It is made up of the cylinder barrel, which is the main body that holds the pressurized fluid. The piston, which sits inside the barrel, and a rod attached to the piston which does the job of transmitting the force from the piston to the workpiece placed on the bed plate. Inside the barrel, there are seals, which prevent leaks, and a wiper that removes dust from the rod. The piston is also equipped with seals that prevent oil from crossing from one chamber to the other. The piston divides the cylinder barrel into two chambers: the piston chamber and the rod chamber. Now let's have a closer look at the directional control valve and how it directs the fluid into these chambers. The valve consists of a handle and a spool that directs the flow of pressurized fluid coming from the tank into the hydraulic cylinder. The spool in the valve is responsible for redirecting the fluid from one port to the other depending on its position. When the handle is in the neutral position, nothing happens, all the ports are blocked. Now, pull the handle backward. That opens the power port and sends pressurized oil straight into the piston chamber. The rod extends outward because the oil is hitting the full face of the piston. You get maximum force. That's why extension is always strong, but usually a bit slower. Push the handle forward, and the story flips. Oil goes into the rod chamber instead, and forces the rod to retract. Since the piston area is smaller on this side, because the rod takes up some space, the space gets filled up faster. As the rod retracts, the piston pushes out the fluid in the piston chamber back into the reservoir. The hydraulic press is one of the most extraordinary machines ever engineered, built to unleash truly staggering force. Heavy-duty presses can generate up through 80,000 metric tons of pressure, enough to forge the huge components that keep airplanes soaring through the skies and vehicles powering down our roads. Its raw strength, amplified by fluid power, shapes the very backbone of modern industry. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more.